Hello, welcome to Dorcas. Today we're going to talk about how exactly our organization can contribute to positive change in the communities in which we work. The ultimate goal of Dorcas is to see flourishing people and flourishing communities. According to our philosophy of change, flourishing communities are communities in which there is a safe and peaceful environment, where people have inclusive access to basic services, people have restored dignity, hope, and ability, and where people have resilient livelihoods. In flourishing communities, there are strong, inclusive, and dynamic community structures, and governments and institutions are held accountable for their actions. Let's have a closer look at each of these outcomes, and more specifically, at the preconditions needed to achieve them. 1. In a safe and peaceful environment, people are able to conduct their daily lives without fear of systematic violence or abuse. There are peaceful relationships among different groups in a community and between communities. For this to happen, there has to be a degree of public order whereby the rights of people are protected and criminal elements are pursued, arrested, and detained. Also, there must be a system in place for protection of vulnerable groups, such as children and women. For example, presence of safe havens for victims of abuse. There also have to be spaces for dialogue and interaction between different groups. This will take away misconceived stereotypes and contribute to mutual understanding and relationship building. 2. In flourishing communities, all people, including vulnerable and marginalized groups, have equal access to quality basic services, such as clean water, education, and health care. For this to happen, first of all these services must be provided by the government or by private companies. NGOs can also offer these services, but this should only be a temporary solution. These services also need to be accessible to everyone, for instance, to disabled people, to poor people, and to people living on the outskirts of the community. Besides, people must also be convinced and determined to use these basic services. For instance, they must understand the importance of sending children to school, washing their hands, and drinking clean water. 3. Flourishing people have restored dignity, hope, and ability to fully participate in community life. They understand their God-given potential and inherent gifts and talents, and take responsibility to use them for their own development, as well as for the well-being of their community. Hope and self-worth starts when people realize that they have a God-given potential and a special purpose in life, and that through Jesus, there is hope even beyond this earthly life. Also, people are empowered through transfer of knowledge and technical and life skills, increasing their self-worth and confidence. In addition, pertinent efforts are taken to support and engage people who face particular challenges, for instance, refugees, people living with disabilities, or people with psychosocial problems or traumas. 4. In flourishing communities, strong, inclusive, and dynamic community structures can be found that are able to mobilize the community and to implement sustainable activities for the benefit of all. For these structures to function, people must seek the advantages of working together, and they must have organization and leadership skills. There must be equal participation and representation of different population groups. Also, people must have a sense of belonging to the community and feel connected to other community members. Flourishing communities have safety nets in place for vulnerable groups who cannot fully take care of themselves, such as the elderly. 5. Flourishing communities are made up of resilient livelihoods, meaning that they can cope with and recover from stress and shocks and maintain or enhance their capabilities and assets both now and in the future. Resilient households are food secure and able to overcome longer periods of drought, floods, or other negative consequences of climate change. Households must also have regular and sufficient income flows throughout the year to finance the cost of basic needs of the family and to save for dire times. They make responsible use of the natural environment while making sure that future generations will also continue to reap benefits from it. Households are able to cope with disasters and/or conflicts and are supported by the government in this. 6. Finally, in flourishing communities, people are aware of their rights and their responsibilities and empowered to voice their opinion in a safe environment, holding government and other institutions accountable for their actions. For this to happen, first, people and community organizations must be convinced of the importance of holding power bearers accountable. They also have to be equipped and trained on how to conduct advocacy. Besides, governments, institutions, and the private sector must be willing and able to take into account the rights of their constituency and offer spaces to engage with civic society. Well, as we have seen, quite some efforts are needed at individual, community, and society level in order to contribute to flourishing communities. The good news is that we don't have to do it on our own. By clearly defining the desired outcomes as well as the required preconditions, we can identify the areas in which Dorcas can contribute to change and also where other actors can play an important role. Together, we can make a difference.